Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens wrote a brief history of humankind that tells the grand story of how our species, Homo sapiens, came to dominate the planet and shape the world as we know it. It is a journey that begins more than 2 million years ago, when several different human species roamed the Earth. Homo sapiens were not the only ones. There were others like Homo neanderthalensis, Homo erectus, and Homo floresiensis. We were simply one of many human types, each adapted to different environments. But over time, all the others disappeared, and we remained. Harari explores how and why that happened, and how our unique abilities allowed us to reshape the world in ways no other species has ever done. In the early stages of human history, our ancestors were just another group of animals living in small bands, foraging for plants, hunting wild animals, and using simple stone tools. They had no farms, no cities, no nations, and no written language. What separated Homo sapiens from other animals was not strength or speed. In fact, many predators could outrun or overpower us. Our key advantage was our brain, particularly the ability to think in abstract terms and to share complex ideas. This ability, Harari explains, allowed us to create shared myths, stories that exist only in our collective imagination but can unite large groups of strangers. Unlike the communication of animals, which is limited to direct and immediate realities such as warning calls for predators, humans could discuss things that were not present in the moment. We could talk about the past and the future, and even about things that did not physically exist at all. This leap in cognitive ability is known as the cognitive revolution, which Harari places around 70,000 years ago. Before this, humans were relatively unremarkable. But something changed in the way our brains processed and communicated information. We began to use language in a more sophisticated way, which allowed for cooperation on a much larger scale. Instead of being limited to small family groups, we could now unite hundreds or even thousands of people around shared beliefs or goals. These shared beliefs could be about spirits, gods, rules, or traditions, things that might not exist in the physical sense but were real in our collective imagination. The power of shared beliefs transformed human society. For example, while a chimpanzee group might consist of 30 to 50 individuals before conflicts break out, humans could live in groups of hundreds or more because our social glue was not just direct relationships but also shared stories and rules. Myths, religion, and culture were not trivial. They were survival tools. We could coordinate hunts, defend territories, and build trust among strangers. Over time, this ability gave us a significant advantage over other human species. Harari suggests that this ability to create and believe in shared fictions may have played a role in why Homo sapiens outcompete Neanderthals, even though the latter were physically stronger and perhaps had larger brains. When our ancestors migrated out of Africa and encountered other human species, they could cooperate in larger groups, strategize more effectively, and adapt faster. As our numbers grew, humans spread to different parts of the world, including Australia and the Americas, leading to massive ecological changes. In many places, shortly after humans arrived, large animals disappeared. This pattern suggests that we played a key role in mass extinctions through hunting and habitat alteration. Harari calls us an ecological serial killer, in the sense that we have repeatedly transformed ecosystems and eliminated many species, often without fully realizing it. For most of our history, humans lived as foragers. Life in these societies was not necessarily worse than in later agricultural societies. Foragers often had varied diets, flexible work hours, and deep social connections. Harari argues that the agricultural revolution, which began about 12,000 years ago, was not necessarily a straightforward improvement for human happiness. This shift from foraging to farming began in different places independently: wheat in the Middle East, rice in China, maize in the Americas, and so on. On the surface, farming allowed humans to settle in one place, produce more food, and support larger populations. But this came at a cost. Farmers often had less varied diets, more disease due to living close to other humans and animals, and harder, longer workdays. One of Harari's striking points is that, from a biological perspective, wheat may have domesticated humans rather than the other way around. Wheat convinced us to stay in one place, protect it, water it, wheat around it, and store it. In return, wheat spread across the world, far beyond its natural range. Similarly, cows, sheep, and other domesticated animals flourished in numbers because of humans, though often at the cost of their quality of life. Agriculture also led to surplus food, which allowed for specialization. Not everyone needed to farm. Some could become craftsmen, soldiers, priests, or rulers. This created new social structures, hierarchies, and eventually cities and kingdoms. With surplus food, societies could support elites who did not produce food themselves but organized, ruled, or waged wars. Social classes emerged, and inequality became a permanent feature of human life. Harari explains that much of this inequality was justified and stabilized through shared myths, beliefs in divine rights, caste systems, and later, nationalism or capitalism. These myths were powerful because they existed in people's minds, yet could shape laws, institutions, and entire civilizations. The invention of writing was another major turning point. Initially, it was not created for literature or philosophy, but for accounting, keeping track of goods, taxes, and resources. Writing allowed for the administration of large empires and the preservation of complex laws and traditions across generations. Money, too, was a revolutionary concept because it was a universal system of trust. Unlike barter, money allowed people who did not know each other to trade effectively. The value of coins or paper money was not in the metal or paper itself, but in the shared belief that others would accept it. Religion also evolved during this time. Early animistic beliefs gave way to polytheism and later to monotheism. Harari points out that even modern ideologies like nationalism or communism can be seen as forms of religion in that they unite people around shared stories, symbols, and values. As humans developed more complex societies, empires emerged. Empires were political orders that ruled over large, diverse populations, often by force but also by offering stability and shared culture. While empires could be brutal, they also spread technologies, ideas, and goods across vast regions. Over time, many empires were absorbed into new forms of political organization, but their influence on language, culture, and law remained. Harari emphasizes that throughout history, the unifying forces in human society have been shared myths, whether religious, political, or economic. Capitalism, for example, is built on the shared belief in economic growth and the power of markets. Science, too, is based on shared agreements about methods and evidence, though it is distinct in being self-correcting and evidence-based. The scientific revolution, which began about 500 years ago, marked another profound shift. Before then, most societies believed that all important knowledge was already known and preserved in ancient texts. The idea that humans could systematically learn new truths about the world was revolutionary. Exploration, experimentation, and observation became central. This led to rapid advances in technology, medicine, and industry. Harari notes that the scientific revolution was closely tied to imperialism and capitalism, as exploration required funding and often aimed to expand empires and trade networks. The Industrial Revolution followed, powered by fossil fuels and mechanization. It transformed economies, cities, and daily life. Populations grew dramatically, life expectancy increased, and material wealth expanded. But industrialization also brought new challenges: urban overcrowding, pollution, and alienation. Social structures shifted again as more people moved into cities and worked in factories. In modern times, Harari explores how humans have increasingly shaped not just societies, but the very biology of life. Advances in biotechnology, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence raise profound questions about the future of Homo sapiens. He argues that we are moving towards a new era in which we might actively design our own species or create entirely new forms of life. This could lead to what he calls Homo Deus, or godlike humans, with abilities far beyond anything in history. But this future also carries risks, including inequality between enhanced and non-enhanced humans, loss of privacy, and the potential for technological disasters. Harari ends with deep reflections on happiness and meaning. Despite all our progress, are we happier than our foraging ancestors? The answer is not clear. While modern medicine and technology have reduced many forms of suffering, our psychological well-being is shaped by expectations and social comparisons. Humans often adapt quickly to changes, meaning that more wealth or comfort does not always lead to lasting happiness. Some studies suggest that strong social bonds, a sense of purpose, and mindfulness contribute more to happiness than material possessions. The story of Homo sapiens, then, is one of extraordinary transformation driven by our ability to imagine and believe in shared fictions, to cooperate flexibly in large groups, and to adapt to changing circumstances. We began as insignificant animals on the African savanna and became the dominant force on the planet, reshaping ecosystems, societies, and even our own bodies and minds. Yet the same abilities that brought us here now give us the power to alter life itself, and with that power comes responsibility. Harari leaves us with the question of what kind of future we want to create, and whether we will use our godlike powers wisely or recklessly.